Hello, welcome to this very special edition of the Pace Report, coming from Detroit for this year's 35th annual Detroit Jazz Festival here in downtown Detroit. Soul icon and jazz vocalist Freda Payne has returned home to her roots, the Motor City. And what I mean by that is, one, she just released a brand new record on the Artistry Records imprint, which is a subsidiary of Mack Avenue Records, titled Come Back to Me, My Love. And this record is really beautiful in the sense that she's not only doing big band records, but she's also performing behind strings. She recorded this record at the legendary Capitol Studios, which is the house that Nat King Cole built, and she performs classics ranging from I'd Rather Drink Muddy Water, The Island by Yvonne Lins, to Midnight Sun, which was written by the legendary Lionel Hampton. We sat down earlier and we talked about her roots growing up here in the Motor City. We talked about how she really fell in love with jazz music, as well as really adored her idol and singer Ella Fitzgerald. And we also talked about her soul roots as well. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the sounds of Miss Freda Payne, coming to you live from the Detroit Jazz Festival here in Detroit, Michigan, as part of the Pace Report.
Those silk shiny stockings that I wear when I'm with you, I wear 'cause you told me that you did that crazy hue. Do we think of romance when we go to a dance? Oh no, you take a glance at those shiny stockings. Then came along a chick with great big stockings too. Then you change your mind about me, why I never knew. I guess I'll have to find a new kind, a new guy who digs my shiny stockings too. Yeah, baby.
Miss Payne, it's an honor to just be sitting next to you. Welcome back home to Detroit. And congratulations on this brand new CD.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I am so proud of it. I'm proud of the work. I'm proud and happy that I was able to do it, and that Mac Avenue is the label behind it, Artistry Records, and that Gretchen Carhart, Gretchen and Tom Robinson, are the ones that are basically responsible for me having this CD.
You know, there are three songs, and the reason why I love this CD so much is you hit three songs that I love the most.
Ooh, I'm inquisitive to find out.
Now, the first one is, and this is a very hard song to do because you were employed by this gentleman by the name of Mr. Lionel Hampton, and you do Midnight Sun.
Oh, I remember working with Hamp back in the 60s, and I remember he would play, he would play it on his vibraphone. And nobody at that point, it was just, the band. And but then since then, I've heard various artists record it. Natalie Cole, Ella. I mean, you can go name them on and on and on.
Have you heard Al's version, Al Jarreau's version?
I was standing in the wings listening to him at Montreux in Geneva, Switzerland when he did it. In 2008. Now, I don't know how he did it on the record, but he was doing it he was kind of far out with it. Am I correct?
Right.
But I mean, Al Jarreau is so out there in terms of his ears and his chops. He's the kind of guy I don't think he would really want to do something note for note, sticking to the melody. I think he'd want to veer off a little bit. That's what jazz is about, is messing around with the rhythm and messing around with the timing. That was the whole thing about little Jimmy Scott, how he would pull back so far. You'd say, is he going to catch up or what? And I think Al does a wonderful job.
And you also reach very hard on another one of my favorite records, Song 2, I'd Rather Drink Muddy Water. And let me tell you how I came into this song. My grandmother, God rest her soul, she liked a lot of rhythm and blues guys, and Johnny Taylor went to Soulsville on that, and Lou Rawls.
Can I tell you my story? I never heard Johnny Taylor do it, but Lou Rawls was the first one I ever heard do it, and this was back in the 60s. Probably mid to early, late, or around somewhere in the 60s. And it was an album called, I think it was, anyway, it was a picture of Lou Rawls and the guy who did the orchestration on the album. His name, the orchestrator, was Onzie Matthews. And do you remember the name of that?
Was it Black and Blue?
Black and Blue.
Yeah.
It was called Black and Blue. Yeah. And Lou Rawls did that, and he did it like with a quartet. It was just a quartet, and I think he used like an organ. It was like an organ playing the lead, on it. And the second person I heard do it, also in the 60s, was Aretha Franklin. And that's it. And that inspired me. See, I was in picking the songs that I wanted to do for this album, and I picked the songs that I wanted to do, rather than having somebody dictate to me or bring a song that I really didn't care about singing, but I had to do it. Is that I felt that I needed to do one, like Down Home, take them back to like bluesy type song, and I felt that was it. But the twist was it was done with big band by the orchestrations by Bill Cunliffe, who did all the orchestrations for the whole entire CD.
Bill is a Grammy Award-winning arranger and producer and pianist, like you said.
Oh yes, he's excellent.
And the album is a hybrid. It's a mix of big band as well as, again, you said the lush strings.
Lush.
And this is the music that you grew up listening to in the 50s and 60s.
Oh yes. Like I said, Muddy Water. Now, Haven't We Met? That's Kenny Rankin. I think didn't that come out like in the 80s? Yeah, and I heard that, and I liked it. I really liked that one back then when it came out. And I got to be friendly. I got to know Kenny Rankin, I think the last couple of years of his life. Of course, when he passed, no one knew because it kind of came up and shocked everybody because he was going on like he was fine. I never saw any signs of him being ill. So at least I got the pleasure of getting to meet him and we became friends of like the last 2 years of his life. So you'd be so nice to come home to Cole Porter. Now that's a standard, and I figured, well, in jazz, there are a lot of tunes that you do that are standards, like Lover Man, that's another one that I could have chose in place of You'd Be So Nice to Come Home To. And what's that? Save Your Love for Me. Nancy Wilson, Cannonball Adderley. That's another 60s song. And the writer was Buddy Johnson. And then the others, let's see, something. Oh, Spring Can Really Hang You Up the Most. I have always loved that song, and I just started doing it like about maybe 6 or 7 years ago. It was Spring Can Really Hang You Up the Most is one of those songs that, like, if you go into, let's say, a really hip jazz piano bar, and then you're sitting there listening to the piano player, and he'll say, do you have a request that you'd like me to play? And Spring Can Really Hang You Up the Most would be the one I would want to request, that I always requested. And, I finally decided to do it myself, especially when I found out that Ella did it, because I put it in my Ella tribute show as well, so I did it like that. And then let's see some of the other songs I picked out.
Island.
Oh
my third favorite. I love Yvonne Lynn's.
I know. The Island, can I tell you? I had heard it done. I'd only heard it done by who did I hear do it? It was like Shirley Horn and maybe one other artist. And then when Bill and I went on the internet to see who else had done it. So we want to listen to everybody's version, Bill especially, because he said he didn't want to copy or do the exact arrangement of anybody else's, and he achieved that in his rendition. And I chose the Island. We both wanted it because to me the Island is almost like an aphrodisiac. It's sensual, sexual, and it's one of those songs that transports you to the island. You can almost see yourself out there, looking and the breeze or whatever. It's one of those songs you can just close your eyes and lay back and or have a glass of wine, and just enjoy. Especially when you're in, let's say, when you're in an area with yourself where you just want some peace and you want to relax and rest and just, you don't want to dance, you don't want to move around, you don't want to like party, you just want to relax, and just enjoy some really nice music.
Please talk to me. Tell me, even though I may regret, I just have to know you mean so much to me. Please let it show. Something I think I'll be sorry to hear if it's bad news. Please don't say it's love. Just get it together. I
Miss Payne coming back home, performing with the United States Air Force note of big band. This has got to be kind of full circle for you because you come from a line of great singers. Your sister's a singer also.
Yeah, Sherry Payne. Sherry started singing back in the 70s when she was hired to be a Supreme with with Mary Wilson. I almost said Nancy Wilson. With Mary Wilson of the original Supremes, and Cindy Birdsong. So it was Sherry was hired as a lead singer, by the way, because she's a very strong singer. And she recorded a couple of albums on Motown, and she recorded what we call a duo album with a lady who was hired after, like along with Sherry later on, who replaced Cindy by the name of Suze Green. And Suze Green is a very good songwriter herself, as is my sister Sherry. And they recorded an album on Motown called Partners. And matter of fact, they just recently kind of like came back together and did a concert in L.A., and they called the concert Partners, and where they did a lot of the material from their album that they recorded on Motown in the 70s. Yes.
You know, the church is probably where it started. Tell me about growing up here in Detroit. Tell me about the music that you heard and you saw here, because this place was a hotbed and still is a hotbed of great talent.
Yes, of course, yeah. I never was in the church choir, but I did occasionally. I did a solo. We belonged to Bethel AME Church, and that was the church that I was baptized and christened in. And a lot of the things when I started really singing, and I didn't really start singing until I was about 13. And I got a chance to work with a few people here that are responsible for kind of like seeding me, getting me interested and kind of pushing me along. Like, for instance, they're honoring Jimmy Wilkins. He had a big band here in Detroit, and he was like Detroit's version of the Count Basie band, the local band, but they were really good. And he would by the time I was like 15, I think, he would hire me to come and do a couple of songs, like if they had a gig at the Latin Quarter, for like the Cotillions or whatever social group, whatever Alphas or what have you, and he'd hire me as a band singer to come and do a couple of songs. And I just saw him a little while ago, and he saw me, and we just hugged and hugged.
Yeah. You worked with Maurice King, the legendary music director for Marvin Gaye and a lot of the Motown artists.
That's right, but I worked with him before there was a Marvin Gaye and a Motown. And matter of fact, Maurice King did my first arrangements. Yeah, he did my very first arrangements. And this is when I was first getting started out, going like maybe, doing gigs locally and eventually going to New York.
Who were some of your musical influences? I mean, I hear a lot of Ella when you sing. I mean, you come from that school, but I know, like I said, Detroit radio was a little different, and you heard everything.
I heard a little bit of everything. There was Frantic Ernie Durham, but I think Frantic Ernie came along. He was in the 60s. Yeah, he was definitely in it. That was the R&B part.
Martha Jean the Queen?
Martha Jean the Queen. Now, she came a little later but she was there. She was part of that era. I go back, I remember, I'm talking about like when I was going to middle school. I went to school called Hutchins, and I remember we lived on Atkinson, and I remember being in bed at night, and I would have a radio. I had a little radio right above my head, and I would turn it on, tap it real low, and it would be a jazz. They would be playing stuff like Julie London, Chet Baker, June Christie. These were Ella Fitzgerald, Carmen McRae. And this music was the only music that really excited me. It was like, I didn't like too much rock. I didn't like rock and roll at all. People say, well, did you ever like Elvis Presley? I said, no, I was never a fan. I mean, he's good looking. He was handsome. I said he has got a nice voice, but he didn't shake my tree. But then I liked Jackie Wilson because I felt Jackie Wilson was superbly talented and underappreciated. Of course.
Operatic voice.
Yes, yes. And then there was Della Reese, and it was Mel Torme, Sammy Davis Jr. I loved him because his talent was so great, so immense.
Tell me about leaving Detroit and going to New York for the very first time, because that's when Pandora's box opened in your career. You went a little bit of everywhere.
Yes, I did. When I think back on it, I say to myself now, gee, I was very bold doing that. That was bold. I was surprised. I was surprised that my parents let me go, but they did. And but I guess I had to walk through. Walk through the fire. Let's say baptism by fire. I guess I had to do that to get to where I am now, and all the things I experienced. I went to New York, and I think the first really important person I met, career-wise, that kind of got me going was Quincy Jones. I was still 18, and then I landed. I got a good agent. At GAC. His name was Sid Bernstein. And Sid Bernstein was the agent who first brought the Beatles to the United States. He also was instrumental in getting me connected with ABC Paramount Records. And after I got landed that deal, they did a single on me, and the single was called Desafinado, Slightly Out of Tune. And even Ella covered that. She's one of the people who covered that. Also, as well as Julie London. And then after that, they decided to do an album, and they put me on the Impulse label. And that album was produced by Manny Album, who, by the way, Bill Cunliffe, when I mentioned that to him, he said that was one of his teachers.
Wow.
And I remember, I can't quote all the musicians who were on that album, but I remember back then the pianist was Hank Jones, and I remember one of the names I recognized, and that was Zoot Sims in the horn section, and Frank West, and I remember going to Birdland in New York. That was when Birdland was Birdland, and I remember Pee Wee Marquette, the guy, the midget standing outside. He was there. He'd be doing his thing, and you walk downstairs and go to see like the Count Basie Orchestra would be playing, or Dizzy. I remember going to Village Vanguard to see Miles Davis, little club, little smoky jazz club, Miles Davis. The Village Gate down in the Village, Nina Simone. And I remember first meeting Nina at a party. This was in Philadelphia, and I was 17, and I went and remember there was a critic. He's gone. His name was Leonard Feather. Leonard Feather was a big jazz critic, and I think he wrote for syndicated papers, including Detroit and all over the country. He was very well respected. And he was there, and we became friends. I remember that. And I remember Nina, there was an after party at somebody's townhouse, and I remember her, it astounded me, because when she came in, instead of saying, oh, how do you do, hello, I'm Nina, she says, where's the bathroom? I got to pee. But that's typical Nina. That was Nina. She was raw. But wow, here's a woman who was a classically trained pianist, of the first order, and a vocalist who had her own style. Those songs, like that. Those are the songs I kind of like grew up on. And then there was Dizzy. I got to meet Dizzy, And he was the kind of person, he was so genuine and so nice. I remember he was the kind of guy. I remember once I was in Georgetown, Washington. I was actually there to do a play because at that time, this might have been '79. Yeah, I was doing a play called Daddy Goodness, and I remember because I had my son with me, and my son was like about 18 months old at the time, and he checked into the same. It was like a small, like a little hotel, you know, but like almost like they had kitchenettes and stuff. And I remember he checked in and he called me from down in the lobby, and he said, "Hey, Dizzy, I'm here. You know, I just wanted to say hi. The guy told me that you were staying here too." You know, and he was that kind of guy. You know, so I got to. I never got to work with Diz, but I got to know him a little bit. And then there was Duke Ellington when I was 17. Oh my God, so many things happened when I was 17.
You know,
Got to sing, got to meet him, and he played for me when I auditioned for him because his son Mercer set it up, and I auditioned for him right here in Detroit. The band was here; they were playing at the Riviera Theater, and when I sang for him, he said, "Well, you know what? I want to hear you sing with the band." He said, "We're leaving in the morning, and if your mother or somebody can bring you to Pittsburgh, I'm going to like bring you up and let you sing with the band."
Wow.
And that did happen. And then afterwards, he wanted to sign me for 10 years. But that never happened. Because same thing, just like Berry Gordy, he didn't want to change anything in the contract.
Wish I knew why I'm so much in love with you. No one else in this world will do. So darling, save your love for me. Run away. If I were wise, I'd run away. But like a fool in love, I stay. I pray you'll save your love for me. I can feel it, even though you're not here. Can we feel it? I really love you, my dear. And though I know no good can come from loving you, I can't do a thing. Ooh, I'm so in love with you. So darling, help me please. Have mercy on a fool like me. I know I'm lost, but still I plead. Yeah. Why don't you save your love for me? Save your love for me.
The 60s was a very interesting time for vocalists, especially black women. You had the Nancy Wilsons that crossed over, but she did the material to help her cross over.
She did good stuff.
Yeah, she did. And then there were the Lena Hornes, and like you said, there was Dinah Washington, who did pop and jazz and blues. But your career took a different change in '68. You hooked up with some friends of yours, Holland Dozier Holland. Tell me how that went against the grain for you doing jazz.
I
And
know.
that had to be a culture shock.
Well, yeah, you're right, because it was a decision I made, and it was a strategic thing. It was like, I want to get a hit. I want to be successful. I want to, open up my career and go further. Now, mind you, you mentioned Lena Horne. She was another person I idolized. I idolized Ella Fitzgerald, Lena Horne, and all these I knew Dinah Washington, hung out with her. She was someone that I also looked up and admired, looked up to and admired. When I decided to go R&B, it was a career thing. It was like, I want to get a hit. Simple as that.
Because I'm a big Aretha Franklin fan. And the stuff that she recorded, the material she recorded on Columbia, was totally against the grain when she went to Atlantic and went to Muscle Shoals and went down. And
Oh, yeah. Well, see, Aretha did exactly the right thing because the stuff she did on Columbia was nice. You can't put it down. It was nice. But when she got down to, Muscle Shoals and went to Atlantic, and she went to her roots. She started singing the music that she could really sing. And Aretha is a church girl, church girl. And when she went to that spot, to that place, musically, it resonated with the public. And the rest was history.
And same with Brian, the Holland Doja Holland. I think once that little incident with Berry Gordy, as far as royalties and the things of that nature,
they had
a little legal problem. But again, they were in tune with making hits with people that they can identify with. And Band of Gold was a very, very pivotal hit. I mean, that was your first number one hit or top 3 hit.
It was. And I was told, this was a few years ago, that was when they left Motown and formed Invictus, that Band of Gold was the biggest record they had. They had a lot of other hits. They had the Honeycomb, they had the Chairman of the Board, and the Glass House, and they had a lot of different artists, Laura Lee. But Band of Gold was the biggest record that the company had as far as a single was concerned. So I did. I guess I did. I have no regrets. I did the right thing. The thing is that what happened though, after Band of Gold became a big success, and then I did my first tour over in the UK. Everybody expected me to be this big bad soul singer, and I wasn't. I said, "Well, I'm a jazz singer in disguise." Sorry, But because I never did a Chitlin Circuit thing, I never did that. I was working supper clubs, I was working posh supper clubs, But the difference is that I was still down there. I was struggling, I was struggling. I was like, I'd make my money, and I put it all back into my work, like gowns and arrangements, and it was like from gig to gig, and I never, it was like. It would have been, I don't know where it would have gone, but I just saw myself wanting to get further ahead, and at that time I felt the only way to do that is to have a big hit record, a commercial hit record.
Did you? I mean, because you were doing Soul Train, you were doing Ed Sullivan, you did all of that. Looking back at it now. Do you regret, or do you have any things that you would have changed, or do you accept where your career is going now? Because this record really, I think, has come full circle for you because you're doing what you love.
You're absolutely right. I'm doing what I love. Excuse me. And I love what I'm doing. You said it. This is like I said a while back, this is serendipitous. It's like it was meant to be. And the thing is that when I went with Invictus Records and Holland Dozier and Holland, I was living in New York. I had moved out of Detroit. I was living in New York. They brought me back to Detroit to record. So it was like the heart and soul of Detroit brought me back. And that's what started my career to really excel. In other words, Detroit possibly in the world of metaphysics was probably the spot where I needed to be in terms of my career, in terms of making things happen. I guess let's say the Holy Ghost was here, my grandmother spirit was here, and all these things. I believe in stuff like that. It's almost happening. It's happening again. From what I'm seeing, is that I work a club in Grosse Pointe, in the it's still the Detroit area, called the Dirty Dog. And matter of fact, I got to tell you this story. Ralph Armstrong, bass player here in Detroit, he's the one that said, "Freda, you ought to work this club called the Dirty Dog. It's a real hip place. They have great food. It's classy. The clientele is nice and classy, and the lady that owns it has her own record company, and la 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 la." And I'm thinking, and something said, "Go ahead and check it out." And I did. I called Willie Jones, who was the manager, and he books the place, and we talked. And he sent me an offer, and I said, "Well, you know what? Why not?" I said, "It's my hometown." I said, still got some relatives here. It's probably some old friends. I said, it might be nice to, go home and work a club. I mean, because it's small, it's tiny, and it only seats like about 70 people, I think, or 65. I said, why not? You know, and I came back, and I did a 4-night stint there, and then they brought me back 6 months later. I did it again, and then Gretchen, she said, you know what? I want you to do a CD for us, and that was that. The rest was history.
And might we add, she wrote some songs for this new CD.
And she did, yes, of course. I did 6 songs that were written by Gretchen and her partner, Tom Robinson. Yeah. And those 6 songs turned out to be, really, really wonderful. A lot of people, there's one song that I think could be a real crossover, and that's called I Just Have to Know. And then the rest of them, like as you mentioned, are standards and songs that have been done before, and songs that I love, that I chose because I loved songs. There's songs I've never done before, except for the one song, the one ballad, "Spring Can Really Hang You Up the Most." That is the only song on the whole CD that that I was familiar with, that I had been ongoing doing. The other songs I'd never done. I never performed them before.
Freda Payne, what does jazz music mean to you?
Jazz music means something I like, something that makes me feel comfortable, something that stirs the soul, something that it's just the music that turns me on. That's all. It's like when I'm in my car and I'm watching Sirius XM and I turn on Real Jazz. I listen to that. I'm more comfortable. I feel more at ease. I feel it's more enjoyable. And then I'll turn on Watercolors when I get tired of that. And I'll listen to Watercolors, which is more smooth jazz, music that has more of a beat to it or whatever. And then I hear that for a while, and then when I kind of like have had my full of that, then I'll turn on the Soul Town for a minute, to get some soul, and then I'll turn it back to real jazz.
about me. Why